Good day, future nurses. I am student nurse Michael, and for today's topic, I will be discuss one of the most important aspects in the field of study, which include the characteristics and nature of learning, as well as its stages. But before we proceed, let me ask you these questions. As a student, what do you think is the primary aim of education? Or do you have any specific reason why you are studying? I'm sure you have. Even a preschool child has. Nag-aaral ako para matupad ko ang aking pangarap. Nag-aaral ako para makapagtapos at makahanap ng magandang trabaho. Nag-aaral ako para maihahon ko sa kahirapan ang aking pamilya. There's a countless reason to the story behind those wrinkles, eye bags, and pimples on your face that might push you from waking up every morning and staying late at night just to study. However, the gist of education is for individuals to learn and not to fulfill those reasons. So, what is learning, by the way? This is how Merriam-Webster defined what learning is. Learning refers to the acquisition of knowledge or skills by studying, practicing, and being taught, or experiencing something. The activity of someone who learns. Based on its definition, it said that learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skills, and not just by reading or listening, but it also requires actions for us to learn. And that actions can be flow and recognized as our own experiences. According to Wikipedia, learning is the act of acquiring new or modifying and reinforcing existing knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, or preferences, and may involve synthesizing different types of information. Aside from gaining knowledge or something, it strengthened it as well. Like for example, a resident doctor assigned to assist the operating surgeon to a surgery, but the patient's case is critical than he thought. And let's say he knows the case, but his knowledge is not enough to prove his skills. That is why he digs more. He studied the surgical procedures and the history of the patient's case, and by doing so, he acquired new knowledge. The changes isn't only to strengthen his existing knowledge or skill, but to produce new product called information. Learning can be acquiring new knowledge or skill, and it can be strengthen the existing one, or it can be both, depends on how learner will take it. So let's move now to the characteristics of learning. In this case, there are 7 characteristics of learning, and these are: learning is unitary, learning is individual, learning is self-active, social, purposive, creative, and transferable. So what does it mean by learning is unitary? It states that the individual learner reacts to the whole learning situation rather than to a single situation in unified way. It means that the learner responds based on the whole situation and not just a single detail. Let me give you an example. There are some instances that we ourselves put in a situation wherein we tend to argue or oppose to someone's beliefs or statements. It was perhaps we have different perceptions. But come to think of it, does everyone has the same interpretation with us? Did we share the same beliefs with them? Exactly. We have different beliefs, and the way we believe to something might differ from them. Hence, our opinions might right. However, we cannot always stand for it because there's a lot of things to consider. Learn to look for a big picture to see its wholeness. Second characteristic says that learning is individual. Do you agree with that? To elaborate more, it explains that each learner differs from each other, and hence, the learning situation is approached differently by each learner, with different goals and different level of result achievements. It means that each learner had different kind of learning environment. For example, reading books and browsing on internet using different kind of website is my way of learning, while you hired a private mentor or tutor for you to enable to learn. Therefore, our learning situation is approached differently, and hence, the goals and level of result achievement is different as well. On the third characteristics, we will see the similarities with the second characteristics. Learning is self-active. An individual learns through his own reaction to situation. Learning is a personal process. Each person develops his own habits of learning. When we say self-active, it is an independent and personal process of doing things by means of learning, especially in a predetermined activities. Like what aforementioned example a while ago, reading books and browsing on internet is my way of learning. And that's how I develop my own learning habits. Learning is social as well. It occurs in response to environment in which there are other individuals. Learning may also take place or can be done by a group of people having the same or different goals. One of these examples are small group at round table discussion. I know you were already familiar with the said example as it tackles in kontekstualisadong komunikasyon sa Filipino. With this kind of learning environment, all individuals of the group were able to participate in a specific discussion. Each of them has the freedom to share their thoughts, theories, opinions to the group. Also, learning is purposive. Learning is directed towards a goals and goals are determined by motives and incentives. Let's go back to my previous questions before I began discussing. Do you have any specific reason why you are studying? Kindly comment down below if you have one. I would be glad to read it. Do you know that this what we so-called reasons or motives are just our own versions of encouragement or motivation in order for us to reach our goals that we set for ourselves? Moreover, these reasons also help us to maintain our own pace while we are on the process of learning and the journey towards achieving our goals in life. Let's proceed to the 6 characteristics in which it states that learning is creative. Human learning is both selective and creative. Teaching involves the mind's activity on the part of the learner and intellectual guidance on the part of the teacher. When it comes in learning, we can show our creativeness by doing supportive activities or mind's activities that would challenge yet help us to learn and strengthen our intellect. These activities includes riddles, quizzes, tests, and etc. And with the intellectual guidance of the instructor, we could easily learn things, one by one, in an interesting and enjoyable way without a trace of being pressured and mentally drained. Last but not the least, the 7th characteristic says that learning is transferable. Transfer refers to the application of knowledge, skills gained in one context to affect another situation. In other words, it is used of previously acquired knowledge and skills in new learning or problem-solving situation. To make it easy to understand, let me give you an example. As an aspiring writer myself, those acquired knowledge or information that I have been learned while taking this pre-med course, which is BS Nursing, is surely a great help for me in writing my upcoming medical novel. From creating new product by using your stock knowledge is a process of transferring of what you have been learned. So, there are 5 factors that influence the amount and permanency of learning. First, intellectual ability. Second, background experiences of the learner. Third, the explicitness and definiteness of goals. Fourth, the relationships between the activities of the learner and the goals. Last, the wholeheartedness of the learner's approach. We are done with the nature and characteristics of learning. Now, let's move on to the stages of learning. As you can see, there are 10 listed stages, and take note that these stages can measure your intellectual capacity as a learner. First, the cognitive stage. Under this stage, the learner is a novice. When we say novice, the learner is new to the skills or task on hand. Also, makes conscious effort to develop an understanding of what to do. Second stage, understanding the nature and goals of the activity. Third stage, initial attempts are also called as gross errors. It is a self-explanatory, so I won't elaborate it further. So let's proceed to the fourth, which is the associative stage. The learner begins to understand the requirements of the skill and become more consistent. Within the learning process, there are fewer mistakes and the learner can concentrate for longer. More complex information can be processed and the learner can use internal feedback to further improve. Fifth stage. In mastering of skills and timing, it takes time and dedication. 7. Autonomous stage. This phase involves further practice of the skills in order to enhance performance so that it became automatic. The learner has internalized the skills and is able to perform it with minimal cognitive monitoring. 8th stage, well-coordinated and effortless activity. 9. Few errors. I won't explain this further because it is also a self-explanatory. So let's proceed to the last stage, the automatic performance. At this point, the skill is well learned. The learner performs the skills automatically without having to focus on execution. If there are few errors, it was easy for them to correct. And that would be the 10 stages of learning. How about you? In what stage you belong? Nevertheless, whatever stage you belong and how long it will take you to learn, don't pressure yourself. After all, learning is a lifelong process. Learn things one by one in any ways possible. And don't forget to have fun. Trust me, it would be worth it still. Before I end this lesson, let me leave you this quoted text and kindly reflect to the message of this meaningful quotation by Jiddu Krishnamurti. He said that there is no end to education. It is not that you read a book, pass an examination, and finish with education. The whole of life, from the moment you are born to the moment you die, is a process of learning. I think it would be the end of this lesson. If you have questions, clarifications, violent reactions, feel free to ask by commenting it below this post or message directly to our class GC and I will answer it as best as I could. Thank you for lending your ears and attention to listen and watching throughout my discussion. It's a well appreciated. I do hope that you have learned a lot. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.